Hello everyone, this is Colossius, and welcome back to our Life and Death series. This episode, it is going to be 5.5, and that is because I noticed in the last episode there was some confusion on the shapes, and I actually made a little bit of a mistake in the last episode because I missed a little liberty, but there was also some feedback that not everyone may know the shapes even though they're counting the liberties. So yes, liberty counting and understanding how many liberties a certain life and death shape has is important, but I may have jumped the gun in trying to teach you guys that skill that I may have skipped what life and death shapes are common for some levels. So in this video, we're going to talk about the life and death shapes that you want to memorize. So these shapes are very, very common shapes and basically the foundation of all life and death problems everywhere. So that's what we're going to be going over in this video is the most basic shapes in in life and death. Now, this video should have been before episode 5. However, due to me jumping the gun and wanting to show you guys liberties and capturing races because I feel it's an underestimated skill, I sort of didn't think about it. So I apologize for that, but I'm getting it out to you now. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So in this, we're going to go over the most basic shapes and then show you some cool shapes after. So in this one, you can see that every black group has a certain amount of eye shape. So let's go ahead and do the move tool, and we're going to pass, and we're going to say how many eyes does each of the black groups have. And not, when I say that, let me emphasize, when I say that, I'm not asking how many eyes you can make or if it's alive or if it's dead. I'm asking how many eyes does it have at this moment in time. You need to know this by heart. You need to be able to glance at the shape and say how many eyes it has at a glance, so you know if you can ignore this group or not, or if you can play somewhere else on the board. So up here, the first one is very obvious. It only has one eye. This is the definition of an eye. It has one eye. White can capture it in one move. You're an Atari. Therefore, one eye. This is the foundation of all of our eyes. But we're going to expand on that a little bit. So here we say black has two liberties, but black only has one eye. And I've seen many beginners actually will play inside of here to make sure that it's an eye because they don't understand that it's already an eye. And I want you, if you're at that level, I want you to try and realize sooner whether or not it's an actual eye. So this shape right here, two in a row, is already one eye. That is because if white plays inside, black will capture, and you can see that it's still at one shape. It's still one eye. So two in a row, we will consider one eye. However, it does have two liberties, not one, but just for the future reference, two in a row is one eye. Now we can move on to three in a row. Three in a row is actually whoever plays first. And what I mean by whoever plays first is if white plays, black is dead. But if black plays, black will make one eye right here and one eye right here. Therefore, he will make two eyes. So in a situation where it's whoever plays first, that means you can't ignore and you must play it to live. In a situation where you only have one eye, that means you should ignore because it's already dead, or you should try and make an eye somewhere else. And if you already have two eyes in a certain shape, which we're about to go to next, then you need to ignore and play somewhere else. So in whoever plays first situation, it means whoever plays first will get the eyes, or take the eyes. So in this case, black needs to play first in order to make two eyes, and if white plays it, then white will take the two eyes, and this will become one eye. But some of you may wonder, why is this one eye? And actually, that is because if black plays, it's self-Atari, so white will just capture. So black actually can't play inside of here. But later, if white wants to capture and remove it from the board, he doesn't have to because it's already considered dead. But later, if white wants to play, white can play inside of here and put black into Atari, and black may capture, but then white throws in, sacrifices one more, and you can see one eye. So three in a row will be reduced to two in a row, and two in a row is only one eye, and so we throw in again, and you can see it's one liberty, and we can eventually capture the black stones here. So three in a row is whoever plays first. Four in a row is actually alive as it stands, and that is because no matter what white plays in here, black will still be able to make two eyes. So for example, if white plays here, then I will play on this side. And this shape, there's one eye, and then two in a row is one eye, so therefore 1 plus 1 is 2. Two eyes. If white plays here, black plays here, 2 eyes. And if white plays on the edge, we can just simply capture the white stone and it's 2 eyes. So no matter where white plays in here, 4 in a row is 2 eyes. Now we move on to 5 in a row. And the reason I actually have this isn't because it's a life and death shape. It's actually to show you, even if you are bigger than the shape, it doesn't mean the shape doesn't exist. And what I mean by that is, 5 in a row, you may wonder, okay, does the situation change with 5 in a row? Well, as long as the liberties and the shapes, and there's no false eyes or Tsujis or anything like that, as long as it's just as it stands, 5 in a row is more than 4 in a row, and by definition that means it's alive. That is because 4 in a row is an alive shape. And no matter how many liberties extra it has or how many eyes extra it has, as long as it has at least that original 4 in a row, it will still be alive. This means it could be 5 in a row, 6 in a row, 7 in a row, it doesn't matter. As long as it has the original 4 in a row, it's alive. And so even if white plays inside of here, I can now ignore. And that is because I know 4 in a row is alive. So even if I ignore, white plays, black plays, 2 in a row, 2 in a row, it's alive. If white plays, black plays, there's 1 eye right there, if not 2, and 1 eye right here. And even if white plays here, I can still get 2 eyes. So because I know I have 4 in a row right here, I can actually ignore again. And this is important to realize too, because many players at the lower levels will respond to moves that are not actually sente or not actually forcing. And this is a really big mistake later on, because the sooner you can stop doing this, the sooner you can actually get somewhere else and make a big move versus just playing a move that just responds to your opponent. So if you can ignore your opponent and go play a big move, it can be extremely valuable. One move and go can be extremely valuable if it's able to ignore your opponent and go do something else that's much bigger. So responding to your opponent like this when you're already alive is actually a really big mistake, and we don't want to do that. So here, because we already have 4 in a row, we actually don't have to respond to this. So if we get reduced down and we see that we're down to 4 in a row, we can actually still ignore one more time because 4 in a row is alive. However, I will say use caution, because this shape is a very exact shape, but it will not always be so clear. For example, what if I use the edit tool here and remove these 2 stones? Now let's say white plays these 2 stones right here. Is the shape alive or not? Can you ignore if white captures? That leads to a different shape. And actually, this shape is, if black plays, white can actually play on the inside, and it's a 3 in a row. So you can see by one little thing, just by me taking one little extra liberty on the outside, or 2 extra liberties on the outside, and reducing that space by 1, it's actually a completely different shape. So here you would have to connect and make it 4 in a row, and now you're alive. Now, I don't expect you to remember that exactly. I just want you to use caution when you are looking at your shapes. So in your game, it may not be exactly this shape, but you should be able to reduce it down in your mind to see what the shape looks like or what it is. So memorize these shapes and then try to apply it in your games and see when and when not the shape actually exists in your own groups. So yes, use caution, but try to see these shapes as soon as possible to determine if you are alive or not and if you can ignore or not. Now, on the rest of the board, I wanted to show that even if they're in the corners or on the sides or in the center, it doesn't matter. So here in the corner, it's 2 in a row. 2 in a row is 1 eye. Here, it's 1 eye in the corner. Here, it's 3 in a row, so it's whoever plays first. So it's the same, actually, if it's in the center or in the corner or on the side. It just depends on how many spaces you have surrounded. And note that keyword surrounded. Just like the mistake up here, where if you ignored, you would have died, even though you had 5 in a row, because you have to surround that many spaces. That means your opponent can't force you to fill in or anything like that. So here I have 3 spaces surrounded that white cannot reduce any more than this. So 3 in a row is whoever plays first. Down here it's a corner, so it's 4 in a row. Therefore, black is alive as it stands because it is still 2 eyes no matter where white plays. Alright, so that's the most basic shapes on these. Now let's go into some little bit trickier shapes. Now let's move along to these shapes. Now these shapes is where we get a little bit more fun. Yes, we know the straight line shapes now, and those maybe you found a little bit obvious or maybe a little bit easy, but these are the big shapes, or the big core shapes that are used for many life and death problems everywhere. And we still actually have one more sheet after this, so even if you see these, don't go anywhere. Make sure you actually stay to the end of the video and watch the bent 4, because the bent 4 is really cool and really tricky. But anyway, these shapes, we're going to go through them one by one. All right, so in here we have the bent 3 in the corner. Bent 3 in the corner is whoever plays first, because if white plays, then white will reduce this shape down to one eye. And if black plays, then this will be 1, 2 eyes. So bent 3 is whoever plays first. A box 4. Box 4 is actually only one eye. Box 4, even though it looks bigger than a bent 3, it actually has worse eye shape. And that is because no matter what black plays in here, it will always become a bent 3 and white will play first. So if black plays here, it'll become a bent 3 and white plays first. If black plays here, bent 3. Here, bent 3. So no matter what black plays in here, it's going to be a bent 3. And yes, white can actually play in here and capture it if need be, but a box 4 is only one eye. All right, now we get into this little T4, kind of a T4, but not quite a T, but this little 4 shape. So this 4 shape is actually whoever plays first, and the vital point's in the center here. So you may notice a theme that the center is usually the vital point. This is the case in many problems, but not always. Just know that this is the tiger's mouth is usually considered a vital point for an eye. But anyway, so the vital point here is this move. So if black plays it, black will actually have 3 eyes. And if black doesn't, then white can play here and reduce this shape down to a bent 3, which is one eye. So no matter what black plays inside of here, if white plays first, then this is going to be one eye. So this little T4 shape is going to be whoever plays first. Now let's get into the bulky 5. The bulky 5 is a very famous shape and a very popular shape, and it can be confusing for beginners, but once you memorize it, it actually becomes fairly easy. So here we actually have a box 4 plus 1, so it's a bulky 5. So here it's another whoever plays first, but finding the vital point is actually a little bit tricky. So first we have to consider what our options are. So here, if we play this, this will be a T4 like so, and white will get to play first. If we play here, this will be a box 4, which is already dead as it stands, as we saw up here. So that's definitely not the move. And if we play here, then yes, it actually is alive, but the reason this one isn't recommended is because this one has a little bit better shape. So this one is actually the answer, and that is because it has a vital point here and another here. So it actually has one less co-threat. And what I mean by that is later if there's a co, white can play here and threaten to kill you and you have to respond. Or white can play here and you have to respond. But on this one, here you have a bent 3 plus one eye right here. So in this one, even if white plays here, you do not have to respond. So this is actually the vital point of a bulky 5. So here, also for white to play, if white plays here, this is actually one eye and black is dead. And that is because no matter what black plays in here, this shape will eventually be reduced down to one eye, or another shape that will be reduced down to one eye. And so white can actually eventually always reduce this down to one eye. So a bulky 5 is whoever plays first. Now we get to a side 6, and I want to point out that I said side, because there's a corner 6 and a side 6, each with different results depending on the situation. So a side 6 is actually alive as it stands. So a bulky 5 is whoever plays first, a box 4 is dead, and a box 6 or a side 6 is actually alive as it stands. So here, the vital point, let's try the centers. Usually you want to go for the center first. If I play here, black will just play on the head. I extend, and black can block and make one eye right here and one eye right here. This is a bent 3, so bent 3 is one eye, and there's one eye right here. And if white goes the other way, it's just the same result in the mirrored direction. So it's actually mi-eye. If white plays one, I play the other. That is what mi-eye means. And if white tries the other center point, then I can simply go here, right here on the bottom. And if white goes here, I simply block, and I have one eye right here and another bent 3 right here. And if white goes left, same shape. Therefore, a box 6 on the side, or a side 6, is alive. If you try any other move, then it's going to end up in the same result. I just play the center and make the eye. So a side 6 is alive as it stands. A bulky 5 is whoever plays first. Now we're going to skip this one and come back to this one later. So now we're going to go to the corner 6. The corner 6 is a little bit different, and that has to do with the amount of liberties black has on the inside. So here, black has 1, 2, 3, 4 liberties, and here, black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 liberties. And you know how important liberties are? One liberty can change everything. One move can change everything, and one liberty can change everything. And that is what we are going to see here. So now, if white plays the Vita Point in the center, black respawns like the same move he did last time, and I go up, and now black goes to make the eye. But because of that -1 liberty, now it's actually a self-Atari. So actually white can just capture. If I go the other direction, then black will actually live. So don't do that. Make sure you get the right direction and make it a self-Atari to block. Some of you may try this one, but this one is a little bit tricky. This leads to a Ko in the corner, which is still really bad for black, but it's not necessary. Go ahead and just remember this is the Vita Point of the corner 6, and it's much easier. All right, now we get into the bunny shape. This is basically the bunny 6 or bunny ears or rabbit ears or rabbity 6, something like that. I think it's the rabbity 6, so it's 4, 5, 6. It's like the rabbity 6. The point is, it's the bunny shape. I always like to think of it as a bunny. I think it's the rabbity 6 or something. I'm not sure of the exact term, but I think it might be the rabbity 6. But I always thought of it as the bunny. It's the easiest way I remembered it. So remember it however you want to. You can think of this shape as Bugs Bunny shape. But the idea is there's a box 4 with 2 ears, and so it looks a little bit like a bunny. And the Vita Point is actually right here. So the bunny 6 or the rabbity 6 is actually a whoever plays first situation. That is because this Vita Point, no matter what you do, you cannot make another eye, and eventually it'll be reduced down to this little T4 shape, or a box 4 shape, or a bent 3 shape. So the rabbity 6 is whoever plays first. But if black plays, one eye right here, and a bent 3. So it's actually 3 eyes, maybe 3.5 because you might be able to make 4. So this is actually 3 eyes if black plays first, so the rabbity 6 is whoever plays first. So this one is also an important one to remember, though it's a little bit more rare, it still comes up every now and then. Alright, so these are the very important shapes to remember, and now we get into this one. This one is probably one of the most confusing shapes you will ever see in Life and Death, and that is because this is the 10,000 year Ko. While I say confusing, it's more like it's a confusing concept, but the actual Life and Death problem isn't that confusing. So here, it's actually a Ko fight, because if white connects, then this is going to be a Seki. But if black takes, well, where's my move tool? So this is a little bit confusing because here, if white plays, it's an Atari, and black has to take, and then it's a Ko fight, right? And if black loses the Ko, then it'll be an Atari and it's dead. But if white connects to try and make it a bulky 5, it's actually 2 liberties extra, so black can ignore, and it's a Seki, because if I try to capture, then it's a bulky 5 plus 1. So I'll have a bulky 5 Miai either way I go. So that's basically to point out that white cannot connect this Ko. White has to actually Atari, and then it'll be a Ko fight. And if black wants to live, then black has to actually leave it as is. If you try to do anything here, for example here, white will disconnect. So this is called the 10,000 year Ko, and that is because if white plays the approach, then white's going to lose the advantage here. So white has a potential Seki, which takes away all the black points. And if black starts the Ko to try to live, for example, if black plays first and plays here to try to live, then it'll be a little bit disadvantage for black, and that is because whoever plays the Ko first, or sorry, if black plays the Ko first, eventually white will play a Ko threat, and then black has to play this approach move to Atari, and now when white takes, black's actually an Atari, and he lost his Seki. So like I said, it's not a complicated life and death problem, it's a complicated concept. So here, if black tries to take the Ko, black has to play an approach move. If white tries to kill, white has to play an approach move. Whoever plays the approach move first will be an Atari when the other person takes the Ko, and the other person will be able to start the Ko by putting the other person into Atari. So whoever plays the approach move first will be an Atari in the Ko fight, and that puts them at a disadvantage in this Ko. So whoever plays the approach move first will be at a disadvantage for winning this Ko fight. Rather, either player could easily make it a Seki and just take the points. Both players are risking around 8 points or more, so white can be risking 8 to 10 points if he starts a Ko, and black risk his entire group which could be more than 8 points for around, or more than 8 to 10 points for around 8 to 10 points. So like I said, it's a little bit confusing, but whoever plays the approach move first will be at a disadvantage in this ko. Therefore, it's called a 10,000 year ko because nobody wants to start that ko. Nobody wants to play that approach move to start it because whoever does will be at a disadvantage. And 8 to 10 points is quite a lot, especially at the high levels. Whoever plays this, and if they lose, they can lose 8 to 10 points. That's resignation worthy for a professional player. So 8 to 10 points is quite a lot. So that is why, unless you can count the ko threats perfectly and exactly, normally you would just take the Seki. So here it's called the 10,000 year ko because no one wants to approach the ko. No one wants to approach it and start it because they will be put at a disadvantage immediately. It's a very unique shape and go, and it's very cool. And I think the only one cooler than this is the, I believe, the infinite life and death problem, where the problem just repeats itself over and over. I forget the exact name of that problem. However, I didn't want to put it in this video because that one's more confusing than this. But I just wanted to show you guys the 10,000 year ko. Alright, so that's a little bit confusing and a little bit difficult. You don't have to perfectly remember this, guys. I just thought it would be a cool little bonus for you to see. But now let's move on to our last little chunk. Let's see if I can find it here in all of my branches. I think this is it right here. There we go. The bent 4 in the corner. This is another confusing life and death problem. It's not as confusing as the 10,000 year ko, but it is a little bit confusing, and it's a very important shape for you to remember. So the bent 4 in the corner is basically this 1, 2, 3 in a row shape that has a +1 on the side. But it's only in the corner where this matters. Anywhere else, this shape will be alive. But in the corner, this shape can be a ko. And a ko in the corner like this is actually considered dead for black, or dead for your opponent. So if your opponent has a bent 4 in the corner, it's considered dead. Now let's go over a little bit why that is. So first off, if white plays and starts it here, then black will have to play this one to start the ko. Because if black plays this is a 3 in a row with the white playing the Vita point. So black must play here, and white will take. And now black's at a disadvantage of the ko. So here, black actually is in a ko fight for his life. So here, bent 4, this bent 4 exactly will be a ko. And I want to explain, there's a little bit of difference between a bent 4 as it stands like this one versus a bent 4 as you see in the bottom right. And I'll go over that in a second. So here it is a ko because all the liberties are filled, and when white goes in, white can actually just start the ko, and black's at a disadvantage. So it's a little bit scary for black. Black shouldn't leave this bent 4. Now let's go on the top right. Well, this one's a little bit different. And, oh, I have one extra stone. Sorry about that. I don't want to do the same mistake I did in the last video where I had one, or I forgot one stone, or I put one stone where it shouldn't have been. I think the last video I forgot one stone. Don't want to do that this video. So this one should be black can live. And this is because when white plays a start the ko, black starts a ko, and white takes the ko, but black can actually just Atari the 2 stones. And now white cannot connect to make it a bent 3. So normally, if it was any other situation, and black tried to just let white do that, and white connected, it would be a bent 3 and it would be dead. However, because it is a legal move to play a suicide move, and here white has 0 liberties if white connects, this move is not allowed. Therefore, when white Ataris, black can actually take and get 2 eyes. So this bent 4 is actually alive until white plays this liberty here. And that would be, once again, a ko. So if black has liberties, the bent 4 can actually potentially be alive because if black can play this double Atari and white can't connect. So here, the top left, bent 4 is a ko. The top right, bent 4 is alive. But now we're going to get into what I was talking about before and how bent 4 in the corner is dead. So this bent 4 in the corner is considered dead. So it looks like a Seki. It looks like 3 in a row, and if black plays first, black actually gets an Atari. No matter what black plays, it's an Atari, so black can't play. And if white plays first here to Atari and black takes, that's a 4 in a row, which is alive. So we can't do that. Actually, the only move white can do is this one, which will start the bent 4 and start the ko. So you may ask, why is this considered dead even though it's a bent 4? We just said the bent 4 up here is a ko. But actually, this bent 4 is considered dead, and that is because a bent 4 in the corner that cannot be a ko immediately is considered dead. And that is because white will wait until the very end of the game where there's absolutely no more ko threats because the game's finished, and then white will start this ko. So when you have a bent 4, leave it. Leave it as a Seki because it's always a Seki for black, but white can kill black at any time. Or sorry, it's always a Seki for white, and white can choose to kill black and start that Ko at any time. So you save it for the end of the game, for the very end of the game. And at the very end of the game, then you will make sure there's no Ko threats or make sure there's not any big Ko threats and just simply start the Ko. And then you'll kill this group. So actually, because of that, many rule sets already consider the bent 4 dead. So it really depends on the rule set. This is very important, guys. The rule set for a bent 4 will change depending on what rule set you're using. So I believe in Asian rule sets, the bent 4 is considered dead. And that is because it shouldn't really affect the result. However, in the American Go Association rules, the bent 4 is considered a Ko. However, black is going to die eventually. The reason this is important is because, yes, even if white plays here and black starts a Ko, there's no difference in the life and death of the group. And that is because the group will eventually die, because in AGA rules, you can fill your territory and you won't lose any points for that, because when your opponent's passing, you'll gain a point back for every point you lose. But more on that, if you want more on that, read the American Go Association rules. So actually in the AGA rules, this is considered a dead group, but black can actually contest it and force white to start the Ko, which will give black 4 capture stones. And then you can ignore. So actually you can gain about 1 point here if you contest it, but it's very confusing, and it actually usually doesn't matter because of white having to pass last. So it's very confusing. So I think in almost all cases, this value will not change. But in a very rare, perfect scenario, black may gain 1 point by contesting it. So it's really, really confusing, but it does matter depending on the rule set if white has to actually make this a Ko or not. However, even if the Ko starts, black should be dead if it's at the end of the game. If you time it towards the end of the game, this black group is considered dead. The most you will ever gain from this, in theory, is 1 point, and that is depending on the rule set. So the rule set you decide or you are using in a tournament can actually change its value by 1 point. However, it will not change the status of the group. The group is dead as it stands. So therefore, a bent 4 in the corner that has this shape where I start the bent 4 and I can start the Ko whenever is considered dead. A bent 4 in the corner where black can live and you're forced to play it immediately is a Ko. So if you're forced to play it immediately, it's a Ko. If black has liberties, black can live. And if you wait till the end of the game, then black is dead. So now let's talk about the last example here, and that is don't make the mistake of at the end of the game where you're nearly finished and you're just going to start the Ko because your opponent can test that it's not dead because you don't want to fill in these points, and so your opponent says it's a Seki. So now you have to contest it. Well, if you try to contest it, do not start here, because then actually black will simply live like that. Remember that you have to start with the outside liberties first. After the outside liberties are taken, then you can start the Ko, and it should be completely okay. In the rule sets, you shouldn't lose any points for these moves. In theory, depending on the rule set. So like I said, the rule set matters for the amount of points. However, that black group is considered dead as it stands, regardless of what happens locally or globally, as long as you wait until the end of the game to start the Ko. That group is considered dead as it stands. Also, okay, so the bent 4 in the corner can be a little bit confusing, and actually the results can depend on rule sets too. However, bent 4 in the corner should be dead as it stands, or at least on the bottom half of the board, the bent 4 in the corner is dead as it stands if you can start the Ko near the end. Otherwise, it'll depend on the amount of liberties. So bent 4 in the corner is a little bit confusing, but hopefully you will go through this and go through each example, and hopefully I explained it okay. If I didn't, I apologize. I tried to explain it as best as I can, as accurately as I can. But these are the shapes and these are the differences between the bent 4s in the corner, and they're very important to remember. So hopefully the bent 4s in the corner and all the other shapes you learned in this video will prove to be helpful to you in the future. Remember, these shapes are to be memorized because all your advanced life and death problems will eventually root back to these shapes. All these shapes are very, very vital for life and death. All right, hopefully you guys found that helpful. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video and would like to see more, please hit that subscribe button. If you would like to support the creation of more videos as well as get access to early releases, then head on over to my Patreon at patreon.com/Clausius. And if you want more Go content, then go to my website, seansgogroup.com. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys